You are listening to the Prosper at Law podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosper at Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Hi, Greg McCollum here with another edition of Prosper at Law podcast. As you know, Prosper at Law coaches criminal defense law firm owners, mostly small law firms and solos who practice criminal defense, either primarily or as a significant part of their practice. And what we offer and what we do for people is we show them how to grow their business. In other words, if you have a criminal defense law firm or you're a criminal defense lawyer and you work for yourself, you don't work for the district attorney's office, you don't work in the public defender's office, you have a business. We show you how to improve your business, how to get more leads, how to get more clients, how to raise your revenues, how to learn how to have more free time and less stress, because these are the things that criminal defense lawyers really lack. And criminal defense law, as I've talked about before, is one of the just being a lawyer is one of the most stressful occupations in America. Being a criminal defense lawyer is stress-inducing, and if you are a criminal defense lawyer, you know what I'm talking about. The other thing that happens is you don't have your own time. And I was a solo criminal defense lawyer really for decades, at least maybe decade and a half. I can't remember exactly, but it was a long time, and it was exciting. And I loved it, and I helped a lot of people, and I won a lot of court battles. I won a lot of negotiations, and I it's kind of saved people's lives at time. In other words, somebody that had never been to prison that got in a situation, kept them out of prison. A lot of people, I kept them from getting a felony conviction. So I really like that. I still like it, and I thrived on it. And I was helping, one person at a time, but it was grueling. And one of the things I think I liked least about it, it wasn't the work. I was good doing the work. I enjoyed the work. Even wasting time in court, standing around in court for hours a year, just wasted time. Even that didn't really bother me because of the camaraderie and the other people there and talking and learning about people and meeting the court staff and things like that. I enjoyed that. But the worst thing about it for me was that I was tied to it. We had court all the time. I practiced in all these different courts and different circuit courts and felony courts and federal courts and summary courts and magistrate courts and municipal courts. So somebody was always having court, and they were all different times and different days, and sometimes they even overlap. So I was supposed to be at two places at once because I'm supposed to have a felony appearance in, say, Georgetown, and I'm also supposed to be at a DUI, breath test hearing in Conway, South Carolina, and they're 40 miles apart. And then the other part of that was taking time off. There was no time off. Even going away for a long weekend was challenging because I always had court on Monday somewhere, and then they even had a lot of these court appearances, like preliminary hearings and stuff, on Friday morning or roll calls, and so I was just boxed in, and I had no free time. I was under a tremendous amount of stress. I wasn't making enough money, and so it just wasn't good. And I didn't think that would ever change. I thought that was just it. And that's one of the reasons, if you read my book, From Chaos to Control, that's one of the reasons I started investing in real estate, because I was looking for some way to be able to keep practicing law, but also at least have some money to be able to take care of myself and my family and have some sense of security. And if you read the book, you know that didn't turn out. That didn't work in the end. But the purpose of the Prosper at Law coaching is to teach you mindset and business principles. And the business principles that we teach, or anybody teaches, and there are other coaching companies out there, the business is business. And once you learn the principles and understand what to do and what not to do, it's not magic. It's something you need to learn, though. And if you don't know it, and if you're like me, and you don't have a clue about it, once you learn it and start processing it and putting processes in place and systems and getting the right people, then your life starts to change. And that's the purpose. I believe firmly in the mission of criminal defense lawyers. I'm really an anarchist at heart. I'm certainly somebody that don't want the government and the criminal justice system. I don't want people telling me what to do. And I don't want to see people that are overcharged in crimes and people who are just being crushed by the system. So I'm very passionate about that. And so the mission really for Prosper at Law Coaching is to do a couple of things. One is to teach lawyers how to change their mindset and understand that they can grow and thrive. And the other is to make them more effective so they have more money and resources to fight back. And if you're a criminal defense lawyer, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not a criminal defense lawyer, you probably live in this kind of delusion that the criminal justice system is fair and takes care of people. Most people think that until they get in it. Then they find out, and they're shocked to find out it's not like that. And so that's a problem. I was watching, I think it was a TV show. It might have been Lincoln Lawyer or something. I can't remember. But the prosecutor was talking about, it was an interview. I think it was an interview. It was a real lawyer, and it was on Dateline or something. And the interviewer asked the DA, the assistant DA, said something to her like, "So you don't like losing, do you?" And so she stared back and she says, "No, I hate losing. I have to win." And that, to me, is the problem, because she has to win. If you read the Code of Professional Conduct for prosecutors, it's to do justice, not win. And certainly if you're a criminal defense lawyer and you've been in a lot of cases and a lot of trials, you see that. Anyway, that's the rant. That's the purpose for Prosper at Law. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about criminal defense, and I'm also passionate and motivated to help criminal defense lawyers build a better life with less stress, more free time, and make more money. Today's topic is standards. What are your standards? And do you have standards? And you may think that you don't have standards, or you may think, well, I have standards in this part of my life, but not the other part. The standards are very important because it's kind of like a no-go below line. What is your minimum level in terms of standards? And this can be a lot of different things. In terms of being a lawyer and owning a law firm, what is your standard for client care? How well will you do it? How poorly will you do it? How important is it to you? And also understand, when I'm talking about standards, there's a difference between your standard and reality. And you may not always meet your standards. In fact, I would say that that's true. There are going to be times when you don't meet your standard. But standards are important. And what is your standard? And one of the things that made me think about this is, for years, I had low standards in my life. And the reason I had low standards is because I had this scarcity mindset thinking. And anytime I looked at doing something good or buying something or taking a trip or doing anything, going out to dinner, buying food, buying clothes, taking a trip, I was always cost conscious. And so, and this still creeps in. And this is one of the things that I realized is that just recently, I needed a new, winter coat, like the long below the knees wool. I think they're called overcoats, something that you wear like over a suit or something like that. And I had a coat, which is a great coat, that I bought in the 80s at like a secondhand antique clothing store when I lived in New York City. And it was this thing called Crombie. It was Crombie wool. I think it was from Scotland or something. I love this coat. And I've had it rebuilt a couple of times where they fixed the lining and sewed it back in. And recently it was cold and I was wearing it, and I noticed all the buttons were all popping off. So I was going to take it to this tailor I know and have him sew the buttons back on. And so I started looking at the fabric, because this coat now is, I don't know how old it is. It wasn't new when I bought it in the 80s, and now it's 2024. I looked at the fabric. I said, well, you can't sew the button back on there. And so I started thinking, well, maybe they could put some patch on there and sew it that way. And I thought to myself, that is ridiculous. Why would you be thinking like that? And that's what creeps in. It creeps into my mind. It's in my head because this stuff was planted in me. Now, my other coat that I had bought at, I think, Joseph Banks or something. And when I bought it years ago, it was $150. $150 for this coat. And so I got it. Now, they had one that was cashmere, but it was $600. So I didn't get the $600 coat because I thought, well, if I go somewhere and I check it and I lose it, then I've lost $600. So I bought the cheaper one. And that coat was pretty good. It wasn't that warm. And I had that coat. I was traveling, and it was early winter, and I was in Rome, and I had the coat, and the coat was just falling apart. And so after the trip in Rome, I was going on a cruise across the ocean, and I didn't need the coat. The cruise is going south, and then it's going to Miami, and I don't need the coat in Miami, and so I'm fine. So I'm trying to pack everything back in. I go, okay, I'm just going to throw the stupid coat away. And that was difficult for me because of this scarcity mindset. So then now I'm going to buy another coat, and I go online, and I'm looking for the Scottish coat, and then I find this Austrian coat, and I like the Austrian coat, but it's $900. So I'm saying, okay, just get the coat. But they're out of stock, so I can't get the coat. So then I go find this other coat that looks pretty good, and it's not great, but it's on sale or whatever. And so then I order it. And then what do? My other coat's gone. This one's thrown, I can't fix it. I'm either going to wear the old coat with no buttons on it or order this new coat. So I order the new coat. It's not much. It's only a couple $100. And so then I'm looking at the delivery on it. And my first reaction is that I can get 3-day delivery for $14. $14. And my instinct is to get the free delivery. And the free delivery says 10 days to 2 weeks. Winter's not that long in Myrtle Beach. Winter might be over by the time it comes here. Plus, I was getting ready to do some traveling. And so I just caught myself and just stopped myself and said, what are you doing? That's your default, Greg? To get free delivery over hucking somebody $14 to get it in 3 days? That's insane. And so that gets into the subconscious mindset of money and scarcity. So do you do that in your standards when you're booking a flight, when you're buying something on Amazon? Are you thinking, well, this flight has a 7-hour layover, this flight has an 1.5 hour layover, but this 7-hour layover, it costs $47 less? Are you doing that? And then if you are, be aware of it. And I would say we all do it. I don't know if that's true. I know that the way I was brought up and raised with such a scarcity mindset, Ben Franklin, a penny saved is a penny earned. That's smart. That's before I learned about the value of time versus money. But really, if you're looking at somebody, just in my position, I'm a grown-up, I have children, I have a kid in college, I'm paying my ex-wife thousands and thousands of dollars a month, I drive nice cars, I own a company, $14. It's really irrational. So if you look at that, what are you doing? And what are you doing about your standards? Now, it also comes up when you're staying at a hotel, you're booking a flight, you're taking an Uber. What are your standards? And if you have higher standards, what you're doing is you're telling yourself that you matter. You're telling yourself that you are deserving. You're telling yourself that there's something good about you versus you're selfish, greedy, materialistic, shallow. Because if you're not careful, you let this idea that sacrifice is noble take over your life. And so now it bleeds over into everything. It bleeds over into how you treat your children, how you treat your spouse, how you treat your friends, how you treat your parents, how you treat your neighbors. Are you living with a low standard that makes you feel unworthy and not confident for these reasons? And so I'd ask you just to examine that. Also, you have standards. For instance, whether you think about it or not, if you're taking a trip, whether it's a business trip or vacation, there's some hotels you're not going to stay at, okay? And you just know that. You're not going to stay in the seedy hotel that isn't safe and secure, some kind of flop house. You're not going to stay there. So then you look at, well, you're not going to stay at the Four Seasons, or you're not going to stay at the Ritz, unless you're somebody that stays at those places. So you have a standard. So what's your standard? Is it a 2-star? Is it a 3-star? Is it a 4-star? When you're booking a flight, are you going to sit at the back of the plane because you saved $70 on a seat? Are you going to sit in a preferred seat? Are you going to sit in the, say, comfort class if you fly Delta? Are you going to sit in first class? You have standards. And the important thing here is that who set the standard? Did you sit around and think about, what kind of house do I want to live in? What kind of food do I want to eat? What kind of car do I want to drive? What kind of education do I want to have for my children? How do I want to treat people that work for me? How do I want to treat the people, that cut the grass and mow the lawn? And who came up with your standard? A lot of standards are set by default. So in other words, they came from your parents. They could come from your spouse. They could even come from your elementary school teachers. Your standards may come from marketing, may come from outside people trying to market to you. So your standard should be your standard. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to go out and buy, a BMW or a Mercedes. If you look at people, like Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld, I don't know what he's driving now, but at least years ago, it came to my attention, he drove a Prius. So he can have any car in the world. He can buy as many cars as he wants, but he wants to drive the Prius for reasons that are his reasons. So I'm not saying that you have to go out and get some luxury car. I'm not here pitching luxury cars. Sam Walton was famous Sam Walton, who created Walmart, was famous for driving an old truck. Warren Buffett of Berkshire Hathaway has lived in the same house, I think, that he bought in the 60s. Jimmy Carter, former president, same thing, same house in Plains, Georgia. That's their standard, okay? Now, with former President Carter, it may be a scarcity mindset too there, but those are the standards. What are your standards? And if you have your standards and you think about it, they should be your standards. They should not be something that somebody has laid over onto you. I know that when you're in a relationship, certainly if you're in a spousal relationship, then if you don't see eye to eye and you don't agree on those kind of things, you can have a tremendous amount of conflict. And that's an issue. And it was certainly an issue for me for years. But think about your standards. Think about what you want in life. And I would encourage you not to just kind of bump along like on a bumper car ride, bouncing off walls and other cars and not controlling what your standards are. And once you start to think about your standards in all aspects of your life, and you can just take an exercise and write this down. What is your minimum standard? What is your standard that you want to, how you want to live? And you start looking at it. Then you can grade yourself and say, well, I'm meeting my standard in these areas. I'm not meeting it over here. And that's not bad. It's becoming aware of it. And so once you determine what that is and the way you want to live, then that's the first step in starting to change your life and starting to say, well, what do I need to do to meet this standard? And how can I do this? And how can I go about it? It's especially important in your law firm. In my law firm, Complete Legal Defense Team, like here recently, our copying machine, I was trying to copy some stuff, and the copier wasn't working, and I thought it was a technical glitch. I thought it was my fault. And so I went and asked somebody out in this pool where everybody works, and they said, no, the copier's offline. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, well, it's offline, it's being repaired. And I said, well, how long has it been offline? And they said, well, it's 2 days. I said, when's it coming back online? They go, we don't know, he's working on it. That doesn't meet my standard. That does not meet our standard. And I kind of pride myself on not becoming overly emotional, but at that point, you know, as they say, my blood was boiling. And so I went and called the copying company. I've been using this copier company where they sell us a copier, or we lease it and they fix it and it works perfectly. And we've done this for like a decade. So I have all these things racing through my mind, like they must have sold the copier company. It must be a new company. They don't have any standards anymore. Now the copier doesn't work. It's not even going to work. And so I went and called the company, and I called them at 4:29 p.m. and I saw on their site they closed at 4:30. I got a voicemail. So then just a few minutes later, this nice little guy comes walking down the hall, and I asked Taylor at the front desk, I said, who is that? And she goes, he's here to fix the copier. So to my credit, I just went back. I said, listen, this copier is extremely important. It's as important as our phones. It has to work. And if you can't make it work, then what I would expect or what I want is that you give us another one. Just bring us another one. And so that evening, I stayed late. He was in there working on it. It wasn't his fault. It's a bad model. They're having this problem with other things. So he's in there trying to fix it. So I don't need to yell at him. He's doing everything he can to fix it. And so when he's leaving, he said, listen, I'm still having problems with it. We're going to have you a new copier first thing in the morning. So the new copy, he shows up. Now, my team didn't know that. So on our group text, they're saying, yay, we're getting a new copier. We're getting a new copier. And then I went in later and told them about the conversation. So that's our standard. The standard at Complete Legal Defense Team is to have the best equipment and technology and client care and people and environment and furniture that we can get. That's the standard, the best that we can get. And so That's important to me. What is your standard? When you buy something, when you buy an envelope, when you buy a pen, when you buy a computer, are you standing in line at the computer store trying to buy the cheapest one? Are you spending 2.5 hours online trying to get the cheapest computer you can get? Is that your standard? Is that what you want your standard to be? Or are you just living in scarcity? If you want to be a tightwad and get everything as cheap as possible, there's really nothing wrong with that. There are people that do that. There are people that become incredibly wealthy who do that. But just be aware that you're doing it. And also know this: your standards control how you live. Your standards control your life. So if you're going to set standards at a certain level, make sure you're setting it and not somebody else. Don't let other people set your standards. And when you think about trying to solve that and resolve that, think about this. 2 things. Notice how your standards shape your life, whether you have a life that you're happy with or not happy with. And think about your standards, especially if you're trying to have a higher standards, or if you're trying to have a higher standard, who do you have to justify it to? Your spouse, your parents, people you work with, or yourself and whatever inner demons you have. Your standards will determine the quality of your life. Think about your standards. And my advice would be raise your standards. And this isn't something that's going to happen in a week. It's not something that's going to happen in a month or a moment. But once you become aware of it in all aspects of your life, it could be the food you eat, it could be your health routine, it could be the work you produce, it could be the time off, it could be anything. Think about that. And if you set your standard and start to achieve it and eventually achieve those standards, then you're going to have the life you dreamed about. You're going to have the life that you want. Once you know what those standards are, you'll start moving toward them. So I would encourage you to do that, and do that not in a minute, but start to think about it and process that over time, and look around and be aware of why you're making decisions and what you're really aiming at. If you have to have something to aim at to hit it and to know that you hit it. So thank you for listening. That's all for today. See you next time.
If you want to know more, go to prosperatlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.